And we're going to bring in our State House insiders now to talk about some legislation going on over there in the House. Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Antoine Seawright, our Democrat strategist. Guys, the House working on a bill now that would basically do away with removing all training requirements to legally carry a handgun in the state of South Carolina. Antoine, let me get your reaction to that proposal that is being bandied about in the House.
I am not for taking away people's guns. I grew up in Swansea where people hunt. They do all these things. I believe in the process of being able to acquire a CWP. What I'm not for is from any and everybody having access to a gun. We all know what can happen as a result of guns being in the hands of any and everybody. We're talking about the state of South Carolina where we had a certified white supremacist by the name of Dylan Roof, who shot and killed 9 people in a church in Charleston who should not have had access to a gun. There was an honest attempt to pass what we call the Charleston loophole. Means if your background check does not come back within a certain time frame, then that person should be delayed getting their gun for whatever reason. So there are reasons why we have things in place in order for people to be able to have guns. I'm not for this. We should not turn South Carolina into the Wild Wild West.
One of the things that this does, and the nuts and bolts of it is this: it basically eliminates the concealed weapons permit. In eliminating the concealed weapons permit, you take away the training that goes along with that. What is also in the bill, though, are some stiffening and strengthening of laws about the uses of guns, where they're allowed to be, where they're not allowed to be. So it goes beyond the headlines of no training, but it also does a great job of strengthening other laws where guns can be used.
But Dave, let me just remind you, South Carolina passed legislation where we can have guns in bars. So when you take away training requirements and all of that, and you add to that, look, laws are put in place to deter people. That doesn't prevent people. So if the wrong person, whether it's anger, frustration, whether it's whatever the issue may be, has their hand on the gun because there's no legal requirement in order for them to obtain a gun, can you imagine if something happens? Then you have a liability that should fall on the state of South Carolina. I think that's dangerous. Police officers have to be trained in order to carry a gun, military folks and everything else. Why should an ordinary citizen not be required to have training or some sort of license to have a gun? Doesn't make sense to me.
Licensing of owning a gun and licensing of carrying a gun is the difference here, Antoine. And that's the part that really you have to take a look at this. This has to do not with gun ownership. And Antoine and I think, agree on this part. This has nothing to do with taking away someone's fundamental right of being able to have a firearm in South Carolina. This goes back to what type of requirements are there going to be? Do you have to go through a concealed weapons training to be able to carry the gun in a concealed fashion? To that point, Antoine, you're right. There are places where having the training is so vitally important. And I think that that's a place that lawmakers in the House are moving this through, but we also have to balance it out against how are guns going to be used and are people prepared for the use of those? This has nothing to do, though, with gun ownership.
Dave, I love my sister to death. She's a wonderful high school principal down in Swansea, South Carolina. I love my mother to death. Neither one of them should be able to purchase a gun and not have some sort of training requirement about how to use that gun, because that's how innocent people get hurt and killed if you don't know how to use it. I think I'm pretty good with a weapon, but I'm good because I've had training and had teaching about how to use that. Irresponsibility could mean liabilities and death to people, all because lawmakers want to make South Carolina into some melting pot of foolishness following the lead of other Republican-led states.
Antoine Seawright, Dave Wilson, guys, thank you so very much. By the way, if this becomes law in South Carolina, the Palmetto State would become the 26th state to approve the so-called constitutional carry law. We have more information for you right now on our website. Simply go to WLTX.com.